India's Northeast, a land of breathtaking beauty, rich cultures, and untapped potential. Hello and welcome. If you haven't seen the title, you're probably wondering why am I showing you this travelogue when we are supposed to be talking about taxes? Well, trust me, there's a connection and we are here to talk about taxes, specifically GST in the Northeast. Because believe it or not, numbers can be just as exciting as exploring the Northeast. So buckle up as we dive into the world of GST Northeast style. For those who don't know, Northeast India comprises of 8 states: Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim and Tripura. These states, excluding Sikkim, are known as the Seven Sisters, Sikkim being the brother of Seven Sisters. Let's now dive into the numbers. The Northeast, despite its challenges, has shown resilience in adopting GST, but its impact varies across states. While the Northeast as a whole has witnessed growth in GST revenue, as individual states, these still have immense growth potential. To understand what exactly I mean by this, let's first talk about GST collections. In FY24, total GST collection across India is Rs 15.23 lakh crore or 15.23 trillion, of which Rs 25,810 crore, which is about 2% of the total collection, comes from Northeast India. To truly understand what these collections mean, we need to consider the demographics of the Northeast. As per the data available on the website of the Ministry of Home Affairs, and this is as per 2011 census, which is the latest we have, population of Northeast India is about 4.57 crore, which is about 4% of the then population of India. But now we know India is the most populous country in the world with a population of over 1.45 billion, about 145 crore, and Northeast India's population is estimated to have gone up to about 5 crore, so the proportion even now is going to remain more or less the same. Of this 4.57 crore population, Assam's share is 68%. So Assam is the most populous state in Northeast India, followed by Tripura with 8% share, Meghalaya 7%, Manipur 6%, Nagaland 4%, followed by Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram, each contributing to 3%. Then we have Sikkim, the least populous state, with a share of 1%. With this background, let us now see what are the shares of each of these states of this FY24 collection for Northeast India. Assam, being the most populous state, contributes to highest GST collection with a share of more than 60%. In the second place, we have Sikkim with a share of 14.36%. Number 3, Meghalaya, 8.75%. Number 4, Arunachal Pradesh, 5.07%. In the fifth place, we have Tripura with a share of 4.08%. Then Nagaland, 2.76%. After that, in the seventh place, we have Manipur with a share of 2.6%, followed by Mizoram with a share of 1.94%. Let's now compare last 2 years' data just to see if there is consistency. Here we have GST collections for FY23 and FY24 for all the 8 states. As you can see, there is an increasing trend in GST collection in all of these 8 states. And if we specifically talk about growth rate, Arunachal Pradesh has highest growth rate of 28% in FY24 as compared to FY23, followed by Nagaland with a 26% growth rate. Then we have Mizoram, Tripura, Sikkim and Assam, where the growth ranges from 19 to 14%. After that, we have Manipur and Meghalaya, where the growth rate is about 9%. Overall, we can say that these states are pretty consistent when it comes to GST collections. Let's now move to the next parameter, number of registered taxpayers. Here we have data on number of registered taxpayers across India. This data is as on 31st May 2024. So total registered taxpayers pan-India is about 1.46 crore, of which about 3.54 lakh taxpayers are from Northeast India, which accounts for about 2% of the total registered taxpayers. Of this 3.54 lakh taxpayers, obviously Assam has highest number of registered taxpayers with a share of about 64%, followed by Tripura 9.16%, number 3 Meghalaya 8.66%, then we have Arunachal Pradesh with a share of 5.26%, followed by Manipur 4.07%, then we have Sikkim with a share of 3.2%, followed by Nagaland where the share is 3.06%. and then Mizoram with a share of 2.34%. If you may recall, so far we have analyzed population, GST collections and number of registered taxpayers. What do we make out of this? 1. Assam, being the most populous state, contributes to highest GST collection and it also has highest number of registered taxpayers. 2. Sikkim, the least populated state, contributes to second highest GST collection but number of taxpayers are relatively low. 3. Tripura, which is number 5 in GST collection, has second highest number of registered taxpayers. Then Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Nagaland and Mizoram. Here GST collection is in proportion to number of registered taxpayers. Let's now talk about compliance. That is, are taxpayers in these 8 states filing GST returns in GSTR 3B and GSTR 1? If yes, are these being filed on time? Are there any taxpayers not filing GST returns? Let's see. Here is the GSTR 3B compliance for all these 8 states up to March 2024. This data is as on 31st May 2024. First, we have proportion of taxpayers who have filed GSTR 3B, followed by those who have filed within the due date, after the due date, and then share of taxpayers who have not filed GSTR 3B. Now, what do we find from this? 1. Tripura, Meghalaya, Mizoram, which have exhibited low share of collection, except for Meghalaya, which is in 3rd place. These 3 states are highly compliant state because 92 to 94% taxpayers have filed GSTR 3B, of which 74% have filed within the due date, rest after the due date. So this also means that 6 to 8% have not filed GSTR 3B. Then Sikkim, which is the top 2 GST collecting state, and Nagaland, which contributes to 3% collection. Here, 90% taxpayers have filed GSTR 3B, of which 68% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 10% not filed. Interestingly, Assam, which is the top 1 state in collection and registration, when it comes to compliance, only 88% of taxpayers have filed GSTR 3B, of which 65% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 12% not filed. Then we have Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, where the compliance is low. Here 85% of taxpayers have filed GSTR 3B, of which 60% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 15% not filed GSTR 3B. Now let's talk about GSTR 1 compliance. Here is the data on GSTR 1 compliance up to March 2024. This is also as on 31st May 2024. Again, first we have share of taxpayers who have filed GSTR 1, followed by those who have filed within the due date, after the due date, and the last one represents proportion of taxpayers who have not filed GSTR 1. Here again, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura are highly compliant states because 94% of taxpayers have filed GSTR 1, of which 30% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 6% not filed GSTR 1. Then coming to Sikkim and Nagaland, 91% of taxpayers have filed GSTR 1, of which 33% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 9% not filed. Similar is the situation with Assam, where 89% of taxpayers have filed GSTR 1, of which 34% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 11% not filed. Coming to Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, 86% have filed GSTR 1, of which 26% within the due date, rest after the due date, so 14% not filed GSTR 1. One key difference between GSTR 3B and GSTR 1 compliance is in the proportion of taxpayers filing GST returns within the due date. While this proportion is in the range 60 to 74% in case of GSTR 3B, when it comes to GSTR 1, it is in the range 26 to 34%. First, Northeast as a whole. 2% GST collection comes from Northeast India, which also accounts for 2% of registered taxpayers. Now about compliance. On an average, 93% of taxpayers have filed GST returns, so 7% are yet to file, as against national average of 94 and 6%. Talking specifically about GSTR 3B, 68% have filed within the due date as against national average of 78%, and this proportion in case of GSTR 1 is 30% as against national average of 57%. So this needs to improve. Now state-wise, Assam is the highest GST collecting state, which also accounts for highest number of registered taxpayers, but return compliance is not the best, so this needs improvement. Then Tripura tops the list in compliance. Here about 95% of taxpayers have filed GST returns. This is in fact better than the national average. but there is scope for improvement in collection. Then Sikkim. It is the least populated state, yet it is the second highest GST collecting state. Compliance 90%, which is better than Assam. Then Meghalaya, which is in third place in collection and number of registered taxpayers, witnesses 92% compliance as far as GST returns are concerned, which is pretty good. Arunachal Pradesh, which secures fourth place in collection and number of registered taxpayers, but when it comes to compliance, it is lowest at 85%. Then Manipur, here again compliance level is low at 85%. When it comes to number of registered taxpayers, Manipur is the next highest state after Arunachal Pradesh with 4% registered taxpayers contributing only to 3% collection. This could be because of the social unrest that we are witnessing for quite some time. Then Nagaland, which accounts for 3% collection and number of registered taxpayers, has a better compliance at 90%. This is in fact better than Assam, followed by Mizoram, which again contributes to 3% collection and number of registered taxpayers, but it has got a better compliance, 92%. In fact, Mizoram is one of the highly compliant states. As you can see, this is a mixed bag. Depending upon the parameter, contribution varies across states. Before we wrap up, in this video, I have tried to give a factual overview without delving into political nuances. The focus has been on the data and its implications for the development of Northeast India. While GST is a significant step, perhaps a holistic approach is needed to unlock Northeast India's full potential. With this, it is a wrap on this episode. Hope it was informative. Thank you for watching.